Good morning, guys. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
And my screen
Yes,
is also visible. My screen is also visible to all of you guys, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. This is the last demo session, and today we are going to discuss few fundamental concept of our advanced C# course, right? So basically, we are starting our chapter one, and yesterday we have discussed what is the roadmap for a .NET developer in the year 2023, and we have also discussed how does a computer work, means what are the program files, what are the data files, how the CPU access the program files via the RAM, right? That is what we have discussed in our yesterday session. Today we are going to start discussing what are the different types of programming languages, how computer programs work, different types of applications that we can develop using programming languages, and what are the different programming methodologies. That is what we are going to discuss in today's session. Let us start discussing with this concept, what introduction to programming language. So because we are learning C# language. C# is nothing but a programming language. So before C# we should know what is a language, what is a computer language, what is a programming language, why we need to learn a language, what is the job of a programmer, right? All these things we need to learn, right? So we are learning C# means we cannot learn C# directly. Before C#, right, we need to understand some of the fundamental concepts, right? So forget about programming language. If I ask you what is a language, then what will be your answer? Anybody having any idea what is a language? Can anybody tell me what exactly language?
it means to communicate with
Exactly.
others.
It's exactly. So language is nothing but it is a medium of a communication where we can share our thoughts. If you want to share your thoughts to someone else, then you need a language. So in general, if you take the example of English, Hindi, Odia, Marathi, like Telugu, so all these are nothing but one language, and using this language, we can express our thoughts with the other one. So language means it is a medium of a communication. So every language having a set of instructions. So that instructions, what you can say, a grammar, right? Without grammar, we cannot form a sentence. Without sentence, we cannot form a paragraph. So basically, if you want to form a paragraph, you need to make a sentence. But to make a sentence, you should be good at grammar. For example, English. For English, there is something called grammar. For Odia, there is something some grammar are there. That grammar is nothing but what you can say. It is the rules and regulations that we need to follow in order to communicate properly, right? So if your grammar is not in a correct order, right, the meaning of the sentence is going to be vary. So basically, that rules and regulations, what is going to be provided by the language is nothing but instructions, and using those instructions, we can communicate with each other using our languages like English, Hindi, and any regional language you can take into consideration. What is computer language? So the computer language is also set of instruction like our general purpose language, English, Hindi, Odia, Marathi, right? Computer language is also a set of instructions. That set of instruction, in other words, we can say set of programs, and that set of programs can understood by the computer only, right? The way, suppose I'm communicating with you guys, I'm saying English because you understand English, I'm saying Hindi because you understand Hindi. But in the similar way, if I say something to computer, if I want to communicate with the computer, then I need a language, and that language is nothing but computer language. And that computer language is nothing but provide a set of instructions, set of programs, right? And using those set of instructions or set of programs, we can communicate with the computer. So in simple word, we can say that a computer language is a language used to communicate with a computer. What is a language? Language is nothing but medium of a communication. If we are communicating with each other, we need what I can say, regional languages like Hindi, English, anything. Similarly, if we want to communicate with a computer, then these regional languages will not come into the picture. Computer cannot understand. Then in that case, we need to understand a computer language. So language, it means, but the objective is going to be same. Whether you take the regional language or whether you take the computer language, the meaning is to communicate. The meaning is to share some instruction. The meaning is to send some instructions, right? And in the case of a regional, in the case of a human, It is the human purpose language. And if you want to communicate with computer, then you need to understand a computer language. Clear, guys? What is a language and what is a computer language? Is
Yes,
that
sir.
clear? Yes. Now the question is, we understand. So suppose we want to communicate with each other, then we need to understand a language, and we know that a computer language. But the question is, why we need to learn a computer language? Suppose I will ask you the question: what is the factorial of 5? Can anybody tell me what is the factorial of 5?
120.
120. What is the factorial of 120?
We can't go up. We are not human.
Right. But if you ask this question to computer within few milliseconds, you will give you the answer. Yes or no? That means
Yes.
Yes.
to make our daily work easy, right? To make our life easy, we need, right? That means, or in other words, we can say to make the complex calculations, right? To perform the complex calculation within a certain period of time, within very quickly, we need to understand the computer. We need to communicate with the computer. A task which is going to be performed by a human, which will take 1 hour to calculate, the computer can do the same task within few seconds. And this is the reason why we are going with the computer to perform complex operation, to perform complex calculations, right? We can use computer, but guys, remember the important thing is that computer can only understand two things. One is 0 and 1. One is binary, or you can say binary language, that is 0 and 1. So that means if you want to communicate with the computer, then you need to do something which is in the form of a 0 and a 1. Let us try to understand how exactly the computer language come into the picture. Guys, give me 1 minute. Suppose, suppose, look at this image. Suppose this is user one and this is user two. And if user one and user two wants to communicate, then they can use any regional languages like English and Hindi. That is fine, right? But if the user wants to communicate with the computer, then he needs to understand a computer language. Now, user one and user two, they can easily communicate using any regional language. But what in the case? Now the user want to perform some complex operation on the computer, like what is the factorial of 5? What is the factorial of 7? Then in that case, the user needs to communicate with the computer. But the question is how this user too will communicate with the computer, right? Is that the direct possibility? Can the user directly communicate with the computer? No, direct is not possible. Then let's see how the user needs to communicate, right? So first of all, if the user wants to communicate with the computer, the user needs to learn a programming language. There are a different category of programming language, like high level language, like a machine level language, or you can say low level language. Low level language, again, machine level and assembly level language, right? So basically, currently the trend is that we are not going to learn assembly or low level language. So we are going to learn something called high level language, right? So the programmer, right, if he wants to communicate with the computer, then he needs to learn at least one of these programming languages like C, C++, Java, C Sharp, Python, PHP, right? Any programming language he needs to learn. And this programming language he is going to learn, that language is going to be the high level language, right? But once the programmer learn the programming language, learning programming language is not enough. Then what he needs to do? He needs to write a program, right? For the second step, the user using any of this programming language can write a program. For example, suppose he is going to do a simple calculations. He needs to take two integer number, needs to perform the operation and need to print the output. So then for that purpose, the user using any of this programming language can write the program like this. But once the program is written, and if you look at this program, this is nothing but simple English language. But the computer, as we already discussed, computer only understood two things. One is 0 and 1. That means there is a need to convert this English-like language, right? English-like in similar to the English, this programming language we need to convert. So in the next step, the compiler, interpreter, or right any of the translator specific to the programming language what you use, that translator will come into the picture. right? Once this translator will come into the picture, this compiler, it is nothing but one translator, right? This translator, what he is going to do, he will take this source code, this program, whatever code you have written, this is nothing but your source code, and this source code will be compiled by this compiler, right? So based on the programming language, let assume that we are developing this application using the C. So in the case of a C programming language, the compiler will compile the source code into machine language. But in the case of a C# and Java, the compiler is not directly generating the machine code. In that case, some intermediate language code will generate, but that we will discuss, right? That is how the C# program execution takes place. That we will discuss in detail. But now let's assume we are using the C programming language to write the program. So the user, the programmer using this C programming language, which opening their video. Okay, guys, please don't make your video on. Okay. So in this case, the user using the programming language write the program, and once the program is written, the respective language compiler will compile this program and generate the machine code, or you can say binary language code. See, the program is written, right? Using the programming language, you can take C, Java, compiler, compile the source code, generate the machine code, and this machine code is going to be executed by the computer. And once the computer execute this machine code, the output is going to be generated. So the point that you need to remember, as a user, as a programmer, we cannot communicate with the computer directly. So if we want to communicate with this computer, then what we need to do, we need to follow the steps. We need to learn a programming language. We need to write the program. We need to compile the program. Once the program is compiled, machine code is generated. And once the machine code is generated, we need to send this machine code to the computer. And the computer then execute this machine code and then provide us the output. So this is how the communication is going to be takes place. But don't think that this direct communication is not possible. Clear, guys? How exactly the program is right? What is the steps? How you are going to communicate with the computer,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
right? So why we need to do all these things? See. For example, take a simple example. Suppose you want to withdraw money. You have two options. One option, you can go to the ATM machine and you can withdraw the money in 2 minutes or in few seconds. Other option, you need to go to the bank. You need to stay in the queue. You need to form the fill. You need to fill up the form, right? Then you need to submit the form to the bank employee. The bank employee will verify the details. They will withdraw, and then they will withdraw the money and give to you. So which will going to take more time and which is going to take less time? Withdrawing the money from ATM will take more time, or doing the same process step by step in the bank is going to take more time? Which is going to take more time? Which is going to take less time?
ATM gets time, bank more time.
Exactly. So ATM machine, why it is take less time? Because we are communicating with the computer only here. And in the bank means everything we are going to do manually. So definitely the computer or the programs, right, whatever we have introduced, they are basically introduced to make our life easier, right? Before computer, we are also doing the same thing, but that thing will take lot of time and lot of manual process. But in this case, automatic everything is going to be right possible. Right now, the question is, right, what is an interface? Right now, the question is, what is an interface? We understand that we need to communicate, but the thing is that, do you know that every user is going to write, every normal user, right? As a programmer, you can write a program and you can execute the program and get the output. But do you think that every normal user, end user, all are programmer? Do you think that everyone is going to learn the programming language, write the program, and communicate with the computer? Is that possible? Is that possible, guys?
No.
No. That means we need to provide some kind of a interface, right, for the end user to interact with our application, right? For example, right, if you take the example of any, what I can say, ATM machine, right? If you take the example of a ATM machine, the end user will go to the ATM machine. He will select the language, and using that particular language, he can perform the operation. So in that case, that ATM machine, what is installed in his area, that is nothing but one interface. But the actual program is stored somewhere else. There is some backend server, there is some database server, and whenever the user enter the card, right, enter the pin, that pin information along with the card information going to the backend server, the validation will be takes place. What amount is in his account, right? How much he is deducting, right, withdrawing, right? And after reduction, how much amount is balance, right? Every processing is happening in the behind the scene. But what the user is doing here, he is only interact with the user interface, right? So basically, as a programmer, what is our responsibility? Our responsibility is to write the program, develop the software, and provide one user interface, right, to end user, so that the end user can interact with our application, interact with our software, right, through the interface, and that interface makes the life easier of a end user, right? So in the case, right, so as a programmer, we need to develop the application, we need to provide an interface, and the end user going to interact with the interface, and behind the scene, whatever code and whatever application we have developed, right, whatever logic we have written, those things are going to be executed behind the scene. Sometimes what happens now, sometimes the user doing some operation and he faces some error, then the end user, if suppose you are using the SBI bank, then the end user, and that SBI bank application is developed by some programmer, some XYZ company. They have having some programmer that XYZ company developed this software, and this is the end user. You are withdrawing the money, and while withdrawing the money, you will face some problem. So in that case, you do not know who is the programmer, who is the company who is developing this software. But in that case, you know, I'm using SBI ATM. So I need to go to the SBI bank. I need to make a complaint that this functionality is not working. My money is deducted, but I'm not getting the money, right? Whatever is your query, you need to inform to the bank. Then the bank will contact with the company who developed this product, who develops the software, and the company will assign the task to the programmer who actually written the code. The programmer will check what exactly happened, why there is a issue, how I can identify the bug, how I can resolve the bug, right? All these things is going to be taken care by this programmer. So this is the job of a programmer, not only developing the application, providing the interface, but also you need to take care, and you need to monitor if something happening, some exception is occurring, some bug is arising, something is malicious, right? Something is difficult, then you also need to take care of all those things to make the software smoothly so that the end user can use it very easily, right? That is the job of a programmer. Clear, guys?
Yes.
Right. So now you can see whenever you are using the interface, right? And as a programmer, you provide this interface, and you know where is the server is, where is the database is, how this server and the database is communicating with this, because you are the interface. But end user, he can only communicate with the interface. What is happening behind the scene, that is not right known to the end user. But as a programmer, you know what is happening. You know where is the backend server. You know where is the database server. You know where is the user interface. The presentation logic is right. User interface is right. So everything you know, but end user only know the interface. And you, as a programmer, need to develop everything, and you need to provide the interface so that the end user can interact. So this is the job of a programmer. So clear, guys, what is a program, what is a language, what is a programming or computer language, and why we need a computer language, and what is an interface? Clear these 4 points?
Yes. From
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Any question from anyone till now?
Yeah, you can question when you say programmer, only programmer, no server database, right? It would be better you can put those arrows in different color than end user blue, and the other one is different color.
That is a good suggestion, right? And that is fine. But the thing is that I'm explaining means you need to
Yeah,
understand
I
this.
got it. But later on, when we just like review the document and
Exactly,
we don't
exactly.
understand, we have to review.
Yeah, I will take this into consideration. Definitely
Thank you.
going further, I'll put the arrow in a different color, right? Yeah. So apart from that, any question related to the explain? This is one suggestion, right? That
That's good.
definitely
Thank you.
any question related to whatever we have discussed now?
No, sir.
Okay, fine. So now we need to understand different types of programming languages, right? So as you already discussed, there are two types of programming language. So first of all, we need to understand what is a programming language and a computer language. So basically, computer language or programming language means if we want to communicate with computer, then we need a computer language or programming language. And again, there are two types of computer languages. One is high level language and another one is low level language. And again, in the low level language, there are two types of language. One is machine language, another one is assembly language. And in high level language, there are thousands of languages are available like C, C++, Java, C Sharp, Python, Ruby on Rails, right? Many programming languages are also coming day by day. So what is the difference between these? So in the case of a low level language, right? If you take the example of a machine language, so using this machine language, you need to write the code using 0 and 1. Using the binary 0 and 1, you need to write the code, and that is going to be understood directly by the machine. And in that case, compiler is not required because you are writing the code directly. And in this case, it is going to give you better performance because there is no need of what I can say, compilation. And this is platform dependent. Means what? If you are targeting one Windows operating system with some processor, with some hardware, right? Based on the computer operating system, hardware, processor, RAM, right? You need to write the code. And if you want to execute the same code on a different configuration, then that is not possible. Second thing, you learn machine language and writing code using machine language is very difficult. You out of 1,000 people, right? Out of 1,000 people, it might be possible that one people can understand this machine language, but 999 people will not understand what exactly the machine language and how to write the code using machine language. So there is a chance we need to increase this one. So after machine language, what introduced? They introduced assembly language. Assembly language somehow reduce the difficulty of machine language. So in assembly language, we need to write some assembly code. Assembly means some symbolic constant, right? You can see mod, sub, div, right? Like this symbol, right? We need to write the code, right? The difficulty what we face using machine language, and somehow it is reduced with assembly language. As this is not a complete, as this assembly language code is written using some symbolic constant, right? So there is a need of a assembler. Assembler means what? That is nothing but your translator, which will translate this assembly language code into machine language. But learning this assembly language, writing the code using the assembly language, again, it is not that easy, right? Out of 100 people, only a few hundred members, right? Out of 1,000 people, only 100, 200 people can understand this assembly language. So definitely there is a need. Definitely there is a need to improve again. And the latest one is high level programming language, right? And the syntax of this high level language is very similar to our English. Learning high level language is very easy. Writing high level language is also very easy, right? Anybody can learn, whether it's a programmer, non-programmer, right? Anybody can learn high level languages. Anybody can develop the application, and anybody can communicate with the computer. And out of 1,000 people, 990 people, right, can easily understand this high level programming languages. And this is the programming language which is mostly used nowadays to develop different kind of applications. You can take the applications like web application, desktop application, IoT, cloud application, right? RESTful services, Windows Form application. You can take into any console-based application, GUI application, CUI application, right? Any application you take into consideration, you can develop the application using this programming, high-level programming languages. So this is the overall differentiate or overall different types of programming language that you can categorize. So basically there are two types. One is low level, high level. Low level again categorized into two types, machine and assembly, and high level means these are the examples. Clear, guys?
Yep.
Right. So this is the language that you need to understand. So now what is the difference between high level and a low level language? So high level language means it is programmer friendly, and it is not programmer friendly. High level language is less memory efficient. It is more memory efficient because in this case you need to target what is the operating system, what is the memory architecture, what is the processor, and accordingly you need to write the code. It is easy to understand. It is very difficult to understand. It is simple to debug. You can debug the application very easily. It's very difficult, simple to maintain. You understand what code you are writing. It is similar to your English like syntax, right? So you can easily write the code and easily you can maintain the code, and it is very difficult. It is portable means once you develop the application, right, you can take the source code and you can run the application on different operating system. It is going to work, but it is not portable platform. It is not a portable. Portable means it is not right. If you once write the code targeting one operating system, one memory right hardware configuration, the same code cannot be run on a different configuration. It can run on any platform. Platform means you can take the source code, run on Windows. You can run the application on a Mac, any kind of. But this is not possible with Lolo. It needs compiler and interpreter for translation. Means once you write the source code, right, then you need to convert that source code into binary code by using something called compiler or interpreter. And here, if you are using machine language, then there is no need of a translator. But if you are using assembly language, then you need assembler, which will translate the source code into machine code. And it is usually widely used for programming, and it is not commonly used in nowadays. And mostly, if you are doing programming, you are going to learn high-level programming language, and it is not used nowadays. Clear?
So that means when you take any computer, write the program in a high level language C sharp, there is no low level language at all in the computer.
Yeah. See, low-level language is there, but nowadays, whenever we are going to develop any applications, we are not using.
Yeah, that means there are some people who use the low level language because when you
See,
write high level
what
language,
I'm
okay,
saying it is not commonly used. That doesn't mean it is not used. It is used for right for developing programming, not commonly used. I'm saying out of 1,000 people, one people are using that low-level language, right? But not commonly used. And as a developer, we are also not going to use to learn that low-level language, and we are going to write the application, right? But if you
so
want,
high
you
level
can learn.
language is not, yeah,
Sorry.
sorry. High level language is not an alternate solution for low level language, right? So both required.
So definitely, no,
Yeah.
definitely, high-level language is the alternative solution for low-level language. Why? Because it is very difficult to understand, write, debug, and all these things. But we can the same application you can develop using low-level language, using high-level language. But using high-level language, if you are getting all these benefits which you are not getting using low-level language, then you decide which one you need to use.
Okay.
So the ultimately thing is like the code needs to be converted into binary format which machine can understand. So writing in low level is a bit difficult, and high
Exactly,
level language is having some syntaxes which we can remember. That's why it is easy
exactly.
to learn high level.
Exactly, exactly. After end, right? Whether you use low level language, high level language, the code,
Mm.
whatever you written, that is going to be converted into binary, 0 and 1.
Yeah, yeah,
You are writing the code, and here also you are writing the code same, right? You can develop the same application using high level and low level, but learning high level, developing the application high level code, maintaining the code, debugging the code, right, is very easy using high level language comparing to low level.
right.
Clear, guys?
Yeah, so I got your point, Rahul, and Pranay. But when you
Yes.
take the compiler has the low level language. So even though we don't understand when we write C sharp in high level language, but when you compile it, compiler might have maybe the low level language, which will translate it to ones and zeros, right?
No,
That's what
compiler
I'm
is
just
not.
guessing.
See, compiler is not. So basically, that basically depends. See, compiler again, it's a software, right? Compiler. If you are using any kind of compiler, it's a software. So we need to understand that software is developed using which language, right? And there is the compiler. See, if you take the example of a C# compiler, if you take the example of a Java compiler, C compiler, C++ compiler, all the compiler are not same. For C language, there is a specific compiler. For C#, there is a different compiler. For Java, there is a different compiler, right? So we need to understand that compiler, what exactly used to convert your source code to machine code. That compiler is developed using which language? In the case of what I can say, in the case of C sharp, it is developed using C language.
Okay.
right? So basically we need to check that compiler is a software, and if it's a software, then using which language it is developed. Then we need to identify whether that compiler is developed using low-level language or high-level language, right? So now once we understand this differences between high-level and low-level, then we need to understand what is a software. So from the beginning, I have told you software means it is a collection of programs, right? And if it is a collection of a program that uses the hardware resources, right? Then what is a program? A program is a set of instructions, right? That are designed for a particular task. So the set of a program is called software. For example, suppose you are developing one calculator. So let us take the example of a calculator. In a calculator, there are many buttons: button 1, button 2, button 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, plus, minus, multiplication, division, right, modulus. Many buttons are there, and for each button behind the scene, one program is written. So whenever you click on the plus button, some program is written behind the scene. If you click on the minus button, some program is written behind the scene. So take the example of a web application. In web application, there are many menus. For example, if you take this example, this is one button, this is one button, this is one button, this is one button. When I click on this button, some program behind the scene, some program is written. When I click on this MPC button, some program is written behind the scene. That means if you take, then but this is not a but this is a software. And similarly, if you take the calculator, for each button, suppose once you type this one button, something is displaying in the screen. And once you click on the plus button, equals button, multiple right, multiply button, anything, whenever you click, behind the scene something happening. And that for each button, we have written a program, and this calculator is a software means it is a set of a program. So if simple word, if someone asks you what is a software means it is a set of programs. Clear?
Yeah.
Right? So if you need to understand, because people are now, right, some people are saying that a program is a set of instruction, a software is a set of programs. But what do you mean by set of programs? That what we need to understand, we need to explain. If you will explain this concept, right, software is a set of program to a non-human being, non-programmer, then he will not understand this definition. Then we need to explain, yes, this is one button, behind the scene we have written something, and whenever you press this button, something is happening behind the scene. And this, whatever we have written, that is nothing but one program. And for this button, we have also written one program. And this calculator is a software means, why I'm saying it is a software, because there is one program, there is one program, there is one program. So it is a set of a program. And whenever we are saying set of program means it is a software. Clear, guys? This is the basic fundamental things that you need to understand. And I hope you understand this. What is a language? What is a programming language? Why we need a programming language? What is the job of a programmer, right? And what is the different types of a language? What is high level? What is low level? And what is the difference between high level, low level? And what is a software? Is that clear, guys?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So next, what we are going to discuss, how computer programs work, right? So we have understand that we need to learn a programming language. We need to write the code using that programming language, and the computer only understood 0 and 1. Right? We understand these things, right? Now let us try to understand, right, what are how exactly the computer program work. So let's try to understand this by doing a conversation between a student and a teacher. Right? As we already discussed, a program is just an instruction to a computer to perform a task. Suppose I'm telling to the programmer, a computer, hey, computer, please do this addition. So I'm putting the number 1, number 2, and please give me the sum of these two numbers. Right? That is means what we are giving some instruction to the computer, and the computer going to perform that particular instruction. Right? For example, I instruct my computer to open the notepad, right? Close the notepad or something like this. Now there's a conversation between student and the teacher. Here the student saying, hey teacher, you said the program is an instruction to a computer, and you also said that computer thinks in terms of binary zeros and one. And here I'm learning C sharp, which is a syntax to similar to English. I feel awkward about your experience. So basically, if you think the student, then the student point of view is correct. The student saying that you said that a program is a set of instruction which will given to the computer so that the computer perform the task. You also said that the computer can understand only two things, 0 and 1. And here we are learning C# language, which is syntactically similar to English. Then how is that possible? Right? Then the teacher saying, what? I think you are in a hurry. Can you talk with the computer using 0 and 1? Right? As a human being, right? Can you talk, if I'm saying 01257, does the computer going to understand anything? No, he will not understand. Then can you teach the machine, can you teach the computer to understand our English language? Can I share something in English and that the computer should understand? Definitely the answer is going to be no, right? So from your explanation, what the student understand is the computer can only understand 0 and 1, like as a human being, as a human being, we understand English and Hindi, right? We know English language, we know Hindi, but we do not know 0 and 1s. Computer knows 0 and 1s, but computer doesn't know Hindi and English. So that means what? That is why we need something called compiler interpreter, and that is what we are going to discuss next, right? So basically, we need something, right, who is going to act as a intermediate person between us and the computer, who will take our instruction, convert that instruction to the computer understandable language. Whatever computer gives in return, that return thing is also in binary 0 and 1. That intermediate person will convert that thing to our understandable language. And that is the role of a, what I can say, assembler, or you can say compiler, you can say interpreter, or ultimately you can say one term, that is a translator. Let us understand one real-time example. Suppose you are one, you are working in a company, right? And I'm the trainer, and you are one, right? You are one employee, right? Suppose I'm asking you, suppose you have a client from Spain who knows only Spanish, and you only know English language. Then how you will interact with that client? You know only English, he know only Spanish, then how you will interact? Then in that case, what you need to do, you need to appoint a translator, right? You need to appoint a translator when you had a meeting with the Spain client, where the translator will take the responsibility to convert your English language instruction into Spanish. And once he convert into Spanish, then he will send that Spanish instruction to the Spanish client so that the client can understand. And again, whenever the Spanish client says something to you, then that information that your translator, your intermediator, will take the Spanish instruction, convert that into English, and then you will convert the converted English is sent back to you. That means you need a translator. Same thing is also happening in the case of a computer language. So we have to write the code using English syntactically, which is similar to English. The translator will translate that English syntax, or you can say source code, to to binary code. And once that it is converted to binary code, that is going to be understood by the operating system, understood by the machine. He can execute the code. And again, once he execute the code, he will return the instruction in binary form also. And then again, the translator will translate that binary information to our understandable language. And that is the role of a translator. And here in computer, we are having three types of a translator. One is compiler, interpreter, and assembler. Already, see, assembler means if you are developing the application using assembly language, assembler is required. If you are developing the application using a machine language, then translator is not required, because in that case you are writing the code using 0 and 1. But if you are writing the application using any high level language, then you need to use either compiler or interpreter. So now let us try to understand what is a assembler, what is a compiler, and what is a translator, and what is the role and responsibility of each of this. Clear, guys, what I'm going to discuss next?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Right. So what is a translator? So translator means, right? So basically it's going to translate your source code into machine code. And again, right, that is the job of a translator. And here you can see there are three types of a translator. What are these translator? One is compiler, interpreter, and assembler. So assembler is used in assembly language. Compiler and interpreter, they are going to be used in our high level programming language, right? So let us try to understand these things. So what is the role of a compiler? Compiler will compile the high level programming language written in any high level programming language into the code which is going to be understood by the computer. That is code in machine language. So the job of compiler is this. how this compiler can see the same thing. So whatever the compiler is doing, that is translating the source code written in high level language to machine language, the same thing is going to be done by the interpreter. Again, the interpreter will convert that source code written in high level language to machine language. But what is the difference between them? That is what we need to understand, right? So in the case of a source code, right, whatever the source code you have written, let's assume you have written 4 lines of code. Line number 1, line number 2, line number 3, line number 4. Then the compiler, what this compiler will do is it will compile all the source code into machine code, and then it will give you the list of exceptions that are occurred in your source code. For example, line number 1 successfully compiled, yes. Line number 2 successfully not compiled, so there is one error. Line number 3 successful compiled, fine. Line number 4 successfully not compiled, there is an error. So once the whole source code is compiled, right, so it will compile the whole source code at once, and after compilation it will give you the number of errors, right, at what line the error are there. Line number 2 is one error, line number 4 is one error, and that's it. And once the compilation is not successful, the program execution is not going to be happening. So in this case, the compiler will compile all the source code at once, and then it will give you the list of errors, right? This is the working process of a compiler, right? The interpreter is also going to do the same thing, but the difference is that, so in the difference is that the interpreter is going to compile the program line by line. So first line is compiled, yes, program compilation successful. Second line is compiled, no, there is an error. So it will not further compile the rest line. So from here, it will stop the program compilation, and it will give you that there is an error in line number 2. So here the code is going to be compiled line by line, and here all the code is going to be compiled at once. This is the difference between compiler and interpreter. And assembler, the functionality is very same. It is similar to compiler, right? It is going to compile the program at once. Clear, guys?
So
Right.
which language use the interpreter?
Right. See, the compiler converts rules, whereas the interpreter language. C and C++ are compiler-based language. Java.NET Python are compiler-based interpreter language, right? So C and C++ means they are going to use only compiler. And if you are talking about Java.NET Python, they are using both compiler and interpreter.
And the C# is using only the compiler or
No, both are there,
both?
right? Compiler is
Okay.
there, interpreter is there, right? Compiler means
Means
first it will two-step execution is there, right? So don't first step the compiler compile the source code into intermediate code, and once the intermediate code is generated, that is going to be executed, converted into machine code by the interpreter, right? So I will explain that concept in detail, right? How exactly the program execution happening in Java comparing with in .NET comparing with Java, right? But in this case, you need to remember both are going to be used in the case of a C, Python, and Java. In Java.NET. So compiler is there, interpreter is there. Compiler will compile the source code into something called intermediate code. If you are having some experience in Java, then you can consider something into bytecode, and then that bytecode is going to be converted into machine code by something called the JIT, just-in-time compiler. If any working professional here, they might heard that name, just-in-time compiler. Right? So I will explain that concept in detail. But if you are talking about C and C++, right, then in that case, what is using? Compiler is using.
okay. Okay. So these are actually object-oriented languages. That's why it is compiler-based interpreted languages.
No, there is no link between the object-oriented. C++ is also object-oriented programming language,
Okay.
right? So in
Yeah.
that case, a interpreter is not used. So there is no link between whether your language is object-oriented language or not. So they are providing some kind of functionality.
Okay.
Why they are providing this intermediate language to make the language platform independent. Well, what is platform independent? We will discuss in depth,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So clear, guys. So what is the exactly how the program is exactly compiled? Clear? Or any question from anyone?
No, sir.
Fine. Okay, next what we are going to discuss different types of applications, right? So using the programming, we know we need to understand the programming language. We know The programming language cannot directly execute by the operating system. We understand that between the operating system of the computer and our programming language, there is something called a compiler, or you can say translator. The translator will take the responsibility to convert our source code into machine code, and that machine code is going to be executed directly by the operating system. Now, now we need to understand what are the different types of applications we can develop using a computer language. Can anybody tell me what are the different types of applications we can develop?
Windows application, web applications, console applications, like that
Okay.
only.
Okay. Yeah. So you are giving different categories like you can say Windows application, console application, you can say web application, you can say RESTful services, right?
Yeah.
But overall, if we categorize the application, then we can categorize the application into two types. One is standalone application, one is web applications, right? So now we need to understand what is a standalone application and what is a web application. See, if you are taking the example of ASP.NET MVC, ASP.NET Web API, both are only going to be web application. To access those applications, you need to use HTTP protocol, right? And another category is standalone application. If you take the example of a console application, if you take the example of a Windows application, then in that case, one exe is going to be generated, and you just need to click on that exe so that the application will start executing. Yes or no? So in this way, so we can categorize the application into two types. One is standalone, another one is web application. So now let us try to understand what do we mean by standalone application and what do we mean by web application. So can anybody tell me what is exactly the standalone application meaning is?
If it is executable, then we just need to click that application and it will work. It will be having the libraries inside this, or the dependencies with it, and it will run. But for web apps, like we need some browsers,
Yes,
some
yes,
other
yes.
applications. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So basically the standalone application means if you are going to install that application on your machine in order to use, then it is a standalone application, right? So if you are installing that application on your machine in order to use, then you can say it is a standalone application. For example, if I want to use VLC Media Player on my machine, then I need to install VLC Media Player exe file or not?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
If I want to use Notepad, then I need to install a Notepad exe file on my Windows operating system or not.
Yes.
If I want to browse something on the internet, then I need to install Mozilla Firefox, Google Chrome on my machine or not.
Yes.
If I want to if I want to prepare some kind of presentation, right, like MS Excel, Word document, then I need to install MS Office on my on my machine or not. So that
Ye-
means anything which is required installation is nothing but a standalone application, right? For example, and guys, remember the standalone applications are compatible with the operating systems. The standalone applications are compatible with operating system. What it means? It means the notepad.exe. The notepad.exe means it is specifically designed for Windows operating system. For Linux, this notepad.exe file is not going to work on Linux. The notepad.exe file it is not going to work on Mac operating system. For Linux, the executable file is something else. For Mac, the executable file is something different. That means standalone applications are compatible with the operating system only. Right? Clear, guys? Okay, so to make you understand what I'm saying, suppose so what I can say is, suppose in Windows operating system, if you want to install anything, if you want to install anything on Windows operating system, then you need to download the exe file. So if you see whenever you are downloading some software from internet, then definitely if your operating system is Windows, then that exe file is being downloaded. Have you ever checked apart from that exe file, anything else you have downloaded?
No. Only .exe for Windows. Yeah.
Only .exe for Windows. Similarly, if you have Mac operating system, right, then only DMG file you need to download. If you take this exe file and try to install on Mac operating system, it will not work because the standalone applications are platform, right? Compatible with the platform. Exe is compatible with Windows operating system only. .dmg file is compatible with Mac operating system only. .rpm file is only compatible with Linux operating system. Windows cannot understand DMG file. Mac cannot understand your exe file. Clear, guys? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Any question, guys? See, these are the basic thing, and I think I need to clear all these things before proceeding, right? Because many, even though 10, 15 years people, they do not know all these things, right? So you should know all these things very clearly, right? So standalone means it must be installed on the computer. It is compatible with the operating system. Example are MS Office, Chrome, Notepad, right? VLC Media Player, everything. These are the example of standalone applications. And each standalone application having, right, a different file extension, right? For example, if you install notepad.exe, then the data file notepad.exe is nothing but your what file? This is the program file. And for each program file, right, for each exe, and for each standalone application, the data file is going to be different. For example, for notepad.exe program file, the data file is going to be .txt. For VLC Media Player, VLC Media Player.exe file, the data file is going to be MP4. Right? For MS Office program file, the data file can be varied. Doc, MS Excel, right? A PPT, anything it can be. So that means based on the requirement, right? You need to understand what extension the standalone file is going to be. Now we need to understand what are web applications. So web application means without installing any software on your machine, if we are working with the software using a web browser, then it is called a web application. See, or if we are accessing something using our web browser without installing anything on my machine, then we can say it is a web application only. Example, you can take the example for Gmail, Facebook, Emo, YouTube, Google, right? Anything you can take into consideration, right? You can directly access. In order to access Gmail, right, on your machine, you do not need to install any software. If you want to access Facebook, you do not need any software. You want to access YouTube, you do not need any software. What you need? You need Google Chrome. You need Mozilla Firefox. You need Edge browser. So only you need a browser. If only by using a browser without installing anything else, if you are accessing the software, means it is a web application. Clear? And you can see it is no need to install. If you are developing web application, it is no need to install. It is independent to operating system, right? What it means, the same application, what right, gmail.com, I can access from Windows operating system, I can access from Linux operating system, I can access from Mac operating system. Do you think that Facebook website is developed separately for Windows, is developed separately for Mac, developed separately for Linux? No, that is only one. And that as it is a web application, it is not dependent on operating system. You can access those web applications from any kind of operating systems. Clear, guys?
Yeah.
Right, so this is how you need to understand, right? And we have already discussed different file having different extensions, right? Platform dependent and platform independent. Again, see, this concept we will discuss in detail, right? But for now, you can see, if you want to develop standalone applications, right, then you can use both the C and C++. Even using Java, .NET, Android, you can also develop standalone application. And if you are using C and C++, this is platform dependent. Means what? You can execute in which platform you are targeting, in the same platform only it is going to be executed. And if you are using Java, .NET, this is platform independent. Means the source code you can retain in Java, written in Windows. You can take the same source code and can run the same code on different type of applications, like what I can say, Mac, like Windows. And again, using C and C++, you can develop only standalone application. But using Java, .NET, right, you can develop standalone application as well as web applications. Again, this platform dependent and independent concept I'm going to discuss again in detail. Clear, guys?
Yeah.
right? So using C and C++, you can develop standalone application. Using Java.NET Android, you can develop standalone as well as web application. C++, this is platform dependent language. Java.NET, these are platform independent language. So again, what is platform? What is platform dependent? What is platform independent? Why it is dependent? Why it is independent? How it is? How Java.NET makes the right application platform independent? We will discuss again in detail. Is that clear? As of now, what we have discussed, what is all these things, what is right? What are the different types of applications that you can develop? What is standalone application? What is web application, right? What is the difference between them? How you can access the standalone application? How you can access the web application? Is that clear, guys? Any question from anyone?
Clear.
Okay. So next, what we are going to discuss, most probably the last chapter for today's session, is programming methodologies. Programming methodologies means what are the different styles or approaches that what we can use to develop program, right? So basically, right, methodologies means the way or the style of writing the code in a program. And there are, and basically in this session, right, or in this now, what we are going to discuss, we are going to discuss what are monolithic programming, what are modular or procedural programming, and what are object-oriented programming. So, see, before proceeding further, can anybody tell me what is monolithic programming, what is modular programming, and what is object-oriented programming? Anybody having any idea?
Not sure about monolithic, but modular procedural is a C and object-oriented is C++.
Yeah, that is the example you are talking. You are talking that C and C++ are modular procedural, C# is object-oriented programming. That is not my question. My question is what is modular programming? What do you mean by modular? What do you mean by object-oriented? What do you mean by monolithic? Any guess from anyone?
So modular means we can break down the program in small pieces, and object-oriented means we can develop the program in classes and objects.
See, let us try to understand. So simple word, monolithic means whatever the code you are going to write, only one function is there. Everything you need to write inside a single function. Modular programming means you need to split the program into multiple functions. Means where you can having what I can say one main function or one manager you can say, and there are many sub function, and the manager function is going to sub function. Sub function is going to call another sub function. Means modular or procedural means you need to make different procedure or function, and you need to call them. And object-oriented programming means the programming where you need to implement the four OOPS concept. Four OOPS concept means the concept called encapsulation, inheritance, abstraction, and polymorphism. If these four concepts you are implementing to write the program, right, then you need to, then you can say this is nothing but object-oriented program. Yes, to implement this four concept, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, and abstraction, we are making use of something called class and object. This is the overview. Clear? Right? Let us try to understand. So in monolithic programming, right? So currently, right, the way currently in the era, in the software era, we are generally following the object-oriented programming style. But at the beginning, we are following the monolithic approach. Let's see what have changes from step by step, right? What was there in monolithic programming? What is the advantages and what is the disadvantages of a monolithic programming? Then I will show you what is procedural or modular programming. Again, advantages and disadvantages. Again, how you can implement the code. And finally, we will conclude with the object-oriented programming approach. Right? Let us try to understand what exactly the monolithic programming. Right? So in monolithic programming, as we already discussed, the entire source code is written inside a single block. Right? There is no separate division. There is no separate sub function. Everything you need to write within a single function. For example, if you take this example, right? If you take this example, you can see this is the main method. All this code I have written within a single block. So this is the main method started, main method ended. And within this block, right, within this main method, everything is written. And there is no chance, that you can create a separate block. You can call that separate block from here, right? This is not possible. And this is not possible in the case of monolithic program. And in this case, right, a single individual can write and maintain the code, right? That's, there is no separate function, nothing is there. Only one individual at any given of time can write the code, right? It is very much similar to a single artist can produce a painting. A single artist is painting the full paint, right? It is something like this, right? So everything, whatever you want, you need to put inside a single function. So now what is the advantages? It is easy and faster to code in monolithic paradigm, as there is nothing, no need to create classes, no need to create a function, no need to call the function, right? Everything you are putting. The simplicity of this code is the biggest advantages. But once apart from this tool, nothing is there, right? And there are dozens of disadvantages of this style of programming approach. What are the disadvantages? The program seems to be very large and complex. You see, if you are writing everything within a single method, right? If your complexity is very high, then imagine how long the program is going to be. That means the program is going to be very large, very complex. Debugging, testing, and maintenance of a program very difficult. Suppose you have written 1,000 line of code, and you want to test the right last thousand line number 995, then how it is possible? So you have to start from the beginning only. So testing and debugging is very difficult, right? So you cannot test individual component because there is only one component, right? So testing and debugging is very difficult. And in this case, only one person can write the program at a time, right? As there is only one method, the same method, two-person can write the code. If we are having different functions or different classes, then we can allow one programmer to work with one function, another programmer to work with another function, or one programmer will work with one class, another program will work with another class. But in this case, everything is written inside a single method. So only one person can write the code. As a result, if the project, as a single individual is working on the project, then you can imagine if it is a very big project, then how much time it will take. There is no teamwork, only individual work. Individual work means definitely it is going to take more time. In monolithic programming, the data and instructions are present in a single block, and hence the code becomes messy and lengthy. Everything, see, if you are having data, if you are having instruction, everything is within the same method, right? So it is very difficult to maintain the code, right? It is very difficult to handle the code, and which will make, say, your program messy and lengthy. Redundancy and repetition of the same code at multiple places. Suppose so some of the logic you want at multiple places, and there is no way of splitting that code into a separate block, right? So wherever the same logic is required, you need to repeat the same code. There is no other options. And reusability is not possible. Reusability, if there is no sub function, if I'm not able to call any function, then how reusability is there? Reusability is not there. So these are the disadvantages of monolithic programming. And in monolithic programming, everything you need to write inside a single method. Clear, guys? Now, if someone asks you what is monolithic programming, can you answer this? And go, please don't go with the code. I'm just putting this code for a understanding purpose, right? So I just want you just need to understand this is only one block where I have written everything.
We can reusability is possible even with a monolithic, right? I can use a go-to statements, right?
Sorry.
I can use a go-to
So that is a go
label.
to, right? So go to label means how you will do this thing. So if you
No, you're
write go
saying
to,
reusable.
right?
Yeah, if
See,
you're
see.
saying
I agree with you. Suppose let me explain this thing, right? So you just explain. I have one statement, right? Statement one. So I have some statement like this, statement two, statement three, statement like this, right? And here I have go to statement, right? So from this, I want to go to this statement, right? Statement one I execute, statement two I execute, to execute, statement three I execute, and then I go to this statement, right? But in that case, once you go to this statement, how you will come back to this?
yeah, you'll come back there. And what I'm
How
saying
you
is
will come
for
back? How you will come back? So my intention is I don't want to go to statement. I want to execute some logic, but after then immediately it will start executing this statement.
After go to, you can consider that as a method. That's what I mean. When you say
So
reusability is not possible.
there is no way you can create a method.
Yeah, we
In
cannot create a
monolithic,
method, but using the go to, we can still achieve.
see now you tell me now. So from line number 3, I go to this statement. So whatever the statement I have written here, that is going to be executed, right? This statement, let's say this is statement 10 and this is statement 11. But my intention is after this statement 11, right? This two statement is executed. I want to start executing this statement 14 and 15. From here, how I
Yeah.
can come back to this statement?
So you have to use a go to label 1 and then put the label 1 on the top.
Again. So you mean again? I need to put here label 1, label 2.
It's like you cannot say go to state down. You can say go to label 1.
No. See. I'm saying go to. So you mean to go to. See, suppose here I'm putting this label 1, right?
Okay.
So suppose I'm putting here label 1. From here it will come to this place, right?
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So from here it will execute these two statements. But once these two statements are executed, I want to come back to this place.
Yeah, then you can
So
put
from,
again go to label 2 down below
so
statement.
for example, you are talking here. I need to put label 2, right?
Yeah.
And from here I want to go to label 2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mean you want to put something like this? Go to label 2, something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, I want to execute the same label 1 here because after this same statement I want to execute here. But again, once this statement is executed, here label 2 is there. Again, it will come back to this place. But instead of this place, it should go to this place. How is that possible?
I mean, we can put again if else conditions inside, right?
So how see how you will put that if else condition here? What logic you will based on
I,
what logic you will decide you need to go to level 2 or level 3? How you what is your condition?
yeah, statement 10 is a if condition, statement 11 is else condition. If it is
No. So
else
that is
condition,
so,
then only go to label 2.
no
Otherwise,
no
go to somewhere
no.
else.
My
Yeah.
question is not that. What is the condition? What condition you need to define here? You cannot write statement 1, statement 2. Here we are writing statement 1, statement 2, but technically it is going to be some statement like this, right? So console dot write line boolean is trial. So some statement means these are the statement, right? But
Yeah.
based on
Yeah.
what condition you can, how you will decide whether I need to go to level 1 or level 2?
Yeah, that condition is if else condition I can write. If this
Exactly. So
meets, then
I
yeah.
understand. I understand you are talking about if else condition, but
Yeah.
what you need to write within that if block? So if condition means it is going to return true or false. But my question is, what will be that if condition block?
It depends on like whatever the functionality you're writing or what feature. Yeah.
Okay, give me some statement so that I will get clarity. So
See,
for this particular
for
example, what?
example, yeah, let's consider microprocessor code. There is
No.
no
See,
multiple
for this
modules
particular,
methods, right? Yeah.
No. So I'm not talking about microprocessor, right? So I'm talking about in this example. So you just tell me based on what condition I will go to this level 1 or level 2 or level 3.
I don't know unless we just like get this some
This is not
any
possible. This
one.
is suppose level 2, level 3, right? So based on what condition, how you will decide whether I need to, because this is the same piece of code. And based on what condition, how you will decide whether I need to go to level 1, right? Or whether I need to go to level 2. That is not possible. It is not possible to decide randomly like this, right? So you can't decide, write something like this, whether I need to go to level 1 or level 2. And again, the thing is that this is not possible, to be frank. Right, because in the if condition we are only going to provide some statement, right? Statement means that the value is going to be true or false.
Yeah, you write some condition. Based on that condition, you can go. Yeah.
Exactly. In this case, what should be the best? That based on the condition. I just want to know what exactly that based on condition. On what should be the statement you have to read? You tell me that I need to write go to statement. Yes, I agree. You tell me that go to level 2, it will go to the level 2. I agree. But what you need to write within this parenthesis, right? That is what I want to know. How you will decide whether I need to go to level 1 or level 2? There's no such criteria is defined which will decide I need to go to level 1 or level 2. Because once you execute this level, right? Once you execute this statement means, right? It will come to the statement directly, right? So there is no such criteria is there, right? Based on which you can decide I need to go to level 1 or level 2. That nothing is available. Right? Again, the same thing is there, right? For example, it is going to be executed line by line. But at some point of time, I need to execute these two statements, right? Then how will that possible? So because it is executing line by line, so there is no way, right? Again, first of all, first thing is that this go-to statement are not supported by monolithic programming, right? That is one. First of all, you need to understand this go-to supported in procedural programming in C++. You can make use of this go-to statement, but Fortran, COBOL, right? The programming language used earlier, they are not supporting this statement. And second thing is that it's very difficult, right? It's very difficult to manage all these things, right? If you even write go-to statement, right? This is not fulfilling the whole purpose, right? And again, you can see for the simplicity, right? If I want to execute the same logic 50 times, then how many if else condition I'm going to write for the sake of deciding to move to which level? Clear? And again, so my intention is that whenever I'm calling this method, I need to pass some data, right? I need to pass some data. That is not possible here. So here, if you use go to label statement, so for example, if I create a function, we can define some parameter 1, 2, 3, and I can pass the data to those parameter, and within the method, I can use the parameter. But whenever I'm using go to label, there is no way you can pass the data. Is there any possibility that you can pass the data to this label or to this go to block?
Yeah, there are some disadvantages with a go-to.
So can you create one example and show to me?
You know, when I studied my bachelor's, that time I wrote the microprocessor code. It just only
See, see,
monolithic, but we still can achieve using the same piece of code multiple times.
no,
So that's what I wanted to say. Yeah.
yeah, if you are talking about microprocessor monolithic programming, it's fine. So what language you used at that time?
It's a microprocessor code. It's not
So,
a
so,
C or C++.
so exactly, so that is what I'm saying. Microprocessor is completely a different thing, and here the programming is completely going to be a different thing altogether, right? The process might be there, but it is not available here. Right. So first of all, you cannot write this go to statement here. This is available in your C and C++, but again, you will not achieve everything, right? But yeah, can you try the same thing using C programming language?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just try it and share in the group, right? So that we will get better clarity. Right. So
Okay.
basically, my question is you should have multiple go to level statements, and each time I'm calling going to a different level, I need to pass some data, and the data is going to be vary from step to step. So from here, the whatever data I'm passing, that is not going to be same from here, and that is also not going to be same from here. And again, once the method is executed, it is going to return me some data, and that return data I'm going to use in the next statement onwards. You understood my point?
Yeah.
Right. So for example, if I'm calling this level 1, I'm going to pass a two integer number, and he is going to perform some operation, and whatever operation he perform, sometimes, right, sometime, and whatever addition or subtraction, whatever you will do, whatever he returns, that return value I'm going to use in the next statement. Clear?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just do it and share to me. So this is monolithic programming, means everything within the single method you need to create. The next approach is modular programming. Modular programming means it is nothing but your procedure-oriented programming. Procedure-oriented programming in the sense you need to create multiple methods, right? And there should be one driver method, which you can say main method. And from main method, you can call other methods, right? Like in this example, if you take, this is one block, this is another block. And from this main block, I'm calling this each prime method, means this is another block. And this method is going to execute and it is going to return the data, and whatever data is written, I'm going to use this. So in the case of this programming approach, you are having multiple methods, right? Or you can say this individual method, you can call them as procedure, you can call them as individual model. So one person can work on this method, another person can work on this method, and the number of methods you have, you can decide whether one person going to work, two person going to work, means a team of member can work on the same project, right? This is nothing but your monolith of modular programming, right? And in this case, you can see it allows easy development of software and application by splitting down a program into smaller program, right? Means one large program is that, but we can dividing that large program into many number of smaller program. It increases the code readability, right? It is as it increases the code readability, so it is easier to understand. It increases the code reusability, means I can call the same method again and again wherever it required. It can be used to write bigger and complex program, means as we are dividing the complexity into different sub program, right? So a complex program can be written very easily. And in this case, a team of programmers can work, right? One programmer will work in one function, another programmer can work with a different function. It is easily understand the program, and the debugging and maintenance is very easy, right? For example, if you take one example, real-time example, suppose one event is going to be organized in your college, and that involve right, that event involve a lot of work. So what you can do, you can divide the work into different teams and the event can be managed easily. So the same thing is here. The event managing the creating the event is the main objective, right? But we can divide that event into different teams. Similarly, our main objective is to perform the operation. But that operation, what we are going to perform, we can split that operation into multiple sub functions, which will not only performing the same task, but it is also going to easily debug the application, maintaining the code, understanding the code, multiple member can work, right? All this flexibility we will get. Clear, guys?
Yes.
Right? So again, whenever we are going to work with object-oriented programming, first of all, we need to understand what are the OOPS concepts, right? What is inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, right? Encapsulation, right? Those are not available in our monolithic programming, not available in procedural programming, right? Those are available in our what I can say, object-oriented programming. Again, in object-oriented programming, you need to make use of something called class and object. Using the class, you can define the structure of your data member, and the object means it is going to give a life to the class member, right? Again, what is class, what is object, and what are all these concepts, right? Which concept we are going to discuss in detail. But for now, if you remember, if you see, this is a class called car having some data member. You can say name, speed, height, some member function, break and slow down, and this is another member function main method. And inside this car, I am creating an object. And again, I'm not going to discuss what is the advantages of object-oriented programming. What is right? What is class? What is object? What are the how you are creating this object, right? What is data member? What is member function? What are OOPS concept? Everything we are going to discuss in detail, right? So once you start discussing the OOPS concept, right? Every concept I'm going to discuss in detail. So this is nothing but another approach, that is what you can say, object-oriented or programming approach. And this is the approach that what we are going to use in our course, right? So this is all about the different programming paradigms that adopted over the last few years, right? Starting with monolithic, then we are having modular and procedural programming, and finally we are in the era where we are using object-oriented programming language. This is all about in today's session. And tomorrow we are going to be 3-hour session. right? So I'm going to start tomorrow session exactly at 7 a.m. So demo sessions, I have delay for 5 minutes, but main session, which is going to start from tomorrow, the timing is fixed 7 to 10, and in between 7 to 10, we will take a break for 15 minutes for our breakfast. Clear, guys? Any question related to today's session or any question related to this right training program? If anybody have any, they can ask. Any question, guys?
Can you add low level language, some of the examples, like
Oh,
for
that is
high level
low.
language we know C, C++ and all, right? Just for future purpose so that we can reference.
So low level language examples, you want to know what are the low level programming languages, right?
Yeah, I didn't go through that. I had some connection issues.
Right. So I'm going to share the document. Don't worry. So this document, what I'm showing you, I will share it with you guys. Right. So
Okay.
machine language, right? So you can discuss this machine language. There is, I don't know exactly what programming language. So in that case, you do not need to learn any programming language, right? Low level language means everything you need to write using the 0 and 1. Right. High level language, whatever we are going to learn, these are high level language.
Okay.
And if you are writing some microprocessor code, right, in that case, you will need to use something called assembly language. I'm not that good at low level and assembly language because there are they exist. So we need to know that there is something called assembly language and a low level language as well. But don't put your mind inside that assembly language and a low level language, right? Never we
Yeah,
are
just
going to learn.
example. So to know what is that. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, if you Google it, you will get many
Okay.
examples, right? So basically, it is going to be the combination of 0 and 1s. And if you are using assembly level language, then you need to use something called move, add, swap, right, to write the code,
Mhm. Okay.
right? But again, once you see the code, then definitely you will not understand, right? You will understand somehow this assembly level language, but you will never understand this machine level language. Okay. Okay. Any question, guys? Shall we stop? So we have completed up to this one. So tomorrow I'm going to start a discussion what is .NET framework, and then I will start installing the required software. So basically tomorrow I'm going to make your environment ready, and then day after tomorrow, right on Sunday, we are going to start our first application, right, using .NET 6. So basically, in the next two sessions, right, I'm going to complete all this remaining chapter. Clear, guys?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.